Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, RJ Carbone. You are listening to BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA. Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Let's get to it.
Anthony for three. That one goes down, and the game is tied.
I'd like to take this chance to apologize to absolutely nobody.
The Yankees are champions of baseball.
Shaking and baking right here on the neophyte.
You guys trying to close the show. She was doing a great job of feeding. It's over.
Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks? Don't you regret not coming to the Knicks?
Game over. World Series over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
All right. Well, boy, oh boy. This is like the first, I would say it's the first game of the season where the, fire Thibs tweets are starting to fire up a little bit, right? You always get that every year. This was a rough game. It was a game that has me a little bit afraid. As I admitted, after the loss against Atlanta, I admitted that there was absolute concern here. We are now 9 games into the season, so that's 9 divided by 82, 11% of the way through. The Knicks are back under 500. And if you're a pessimist, like myself, but I do try to be an optimist when it comes to the Knicks for whatever reason. But if you're a pessimist, you're probably talking yourself into why this could go wrong right now. You can probably see it with this roster and just the mediocrity and the Knicks having offensive firepower, but never being able to figure this thing out defensively. Right? You can be afraid. Because I'm afraid a little bit. I can see, they've at the moment, it seems like this team has lost their identity from last year. They don't seem to have the same grit. The defense has been very poor. The offensive rebounding, winning the possession battle, the math game, that's not there. You could probably talk yourself into that, the moves that they made the last several months in the summertime kind of tore the fabric of what this team was. And I'm trying my very best to save my true analysis and any evaluation until we're 20 games in. I just want to wait a month or so. I just want to give them time, but I get it, man. If you're already panicking, I would say just give it time, but I understand where it's coming from. Because the Knicks last night lost another one in where they got just made fun of defensively. They lose this game. They scored 121 points. They gave up 132. Their defense was very, very, very poor. They were constantly attacked in drop coverage. Their offense was limited. Very limited from the three-point line, at least. They scored 121, but they only got off 25 threes. They completely folded once again in the fourth quarter. Those Miles Turner three-pointers killed them. And so, again, they lose this 132-121 in Indiana at Gainbridge Fieldhouse last night. And now you're looking at a team that's 4-5 to begin a season in an Eastern Conference where the 2 seeds up top are on fire. Fortunately, the rest of the conference is off to a very mediocre start as well, which is why you should probably hang on a little bit longer if you're thinking about jumping off ship. if you want to start with some of the positives, because I want to get into the negatives a little bit later, it's that Jalen Brunson looked very good last night, and he returned to form.
Bing bang.
Jalen Brunson last night, 33 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists. He shot 11 of 17, 1 for 2 from 3, and he was 10 for 12, 83% at the free throw stripe. Loved what I saw. It was nice to see the efficiency return. He was getting to his spots and executing, especially being efficient at the first 2 levels, which has been, he's gotten off to a slow start there, but he was 10 for 15 last night from 2-point range. And I think Jalen Brunson, he will be fine. I think in general, this offense as well will be fine because it starts with Brunson, and I think he'll be fine. He had a great first half. He was excellent in the fourth quarter. Some big crunch time baskets from him. He now has 4 game balls on the season. And on the season, again, for a guy who's gotten off to a quote-unquote slow start, he's averaging 25 and 7 on 48%, 42% from the field, 81% at the line. He's a +5 on the season through 9 games. The Brunson numbers are still there. So he's got 4 game balls out of 9 games so far. On the bench, we'll talk about this bench a little later, but Deuce McBride, you could argue Sims had a better game. I thought Deuce was good, though. I thought he was fine. He didn't play great, but the bench is very thin right now, and I thought Deuce was fine. 7 points, 2 steals. He did struggle a little bit when he was forced into half-court play, but again, Deuce is going to be racking up some of these game balls because this bench unit has been thin with all the injuries. He has 8 game balls out of 9 games so far to start the year, and efficient shooting. Not last night, but still on the season, he's averaging 44% from the floor and 40 from deep, 80 at the line. So, good for Deuce McBride. But really, I want to start getting into the thick of things here. So we're going to head to break really briefly, get back, and we'll talk a little bit more about this defense and the concerns that I see. So stay with us. We'll be back in just a second.
Hey there, thanks for listening in so far. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks so much. You can follow us on social media as well. On Instagram, we're at BD4Pod and at Rob J. Carbone. On X, we're at BD4Pod and at RJCBD4. And on Facebook, we're BD4.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. Episode 742 of the podcast. The Knicks lose to the Pacers last night in Indiana, 132 to 121. To start, I thought they were getting abused in transition. Now, this defense so far this season has struggled in the half court, which we'll get into in just 1 second. But they've been limiting transition and fast break points. All the metrics line up there. Like, they're 4th in limiting fast break points per game. They're 8th in limiting fast break points per 100 possessions. They're 4th in limiting points per game in transition. They're 6th in terms of points per possession in transition, or per 100 possessions. They're 2nd in allowing points per game off turnovers, meaning the 2nd lowest, and they're 5th in terms of points per 100 possessions off turnovers. So all the metrics line up that they have been limiting transition points. But again, last night was the Indiana Pacers, and the Indiana Pacers run a very high-tempo offense, and so the Knicks got beat in the fast break badly. They allowed 19 fast break points. They were minus 13 in that category. They allowed 13 points off turnovers. They were minus 2 there. Tyrese Halliburton getting downhill in transition you finished with 35 points. Matherin killed them, who the Knicks didn't see in the postseason last year, but he's healthy this year, and he scored 38 points last night, game high, killed them on the break. A ton of three-pointers in transition in the first half. He had a coast-to-coast finish off that Miles Turner block on Brunson in the third quarter. A couple more transition baskets in the fourth quarter. Just, this Pacer offense is a very high-tempo offense. They love to push the pace. They run this full-court style. They run a lot. And so it was like the first time the Knicks have been tested this season in terms of defending transition, and they failed miserably. They couldn't get set quick enough. There was still some miscommunication, which has been a recurring issue all year. But really, the big underlying problem has been their defense in the half court, which is very concerning now. I'm starting to wonder if they're ever going to become a top defensive team. I think their ceiling is starting to lower and lower to where they might just be an average defensive team if they figure it out. Which, if your offense is what it's expected to be and what it has been so far, fine. But you do worry about that when you play certain teams, because the Knicks got killed last night. And much like in the playoffs against Indiana last year, they were put in a blender again on every single ball screen action. Whether it was missed rotations, late rotations, switching, it was leading to wide open three-point attempts. Their ball screen coverage did not work, and they made adjustments way too late. Thibs waited a little too long to put Josh Hart on Miles Turner and taking Towns off of him, right? And that might have to be something he looks to do a little more often, right? Maybe going forward, the Knicks should think about putting Anunoby or Hart at the 5 with Towns hidden at the wing. You have Towns guarding a low-usage, non-threat wing, and you put one of your better defensive wings in Anunoby or Hart at the 5 to defend those bigs. That's probably what you have to do, because it's not working with Cat. The real issue in this defense is that your two weak points defensively are point and big, right? And those, unfortunately, are the two positions that are going to be involved on every traditional 1-5 pick and roll. Towns is, Thibs has him playing primarily in a drop coverage, which in the modern NBA, with a lot of spacing 5s in the Eastern Conference, not always the best formula. That was my big concern entering the season. It was playing Cat at the 5 and drop. Because Brunson's too small, and he's difficult to hide with, because you got another weak point that you have to hide in Towns. So it's easy to expose that sometimes. And yeah, they're not healthy right now. Mitchell Robinson can certainly help, yes, but let's remember, he's not going to help the issues against offenses like Boston and Indiana, guys who offenses that run pick and pop and they space 5 out. We've seen Mitch time and time again get torched in drop against Porzingis, against Miles Turner, Embiid even sometimes. Right now you're seeing the issue with Karl Anthony Towns at the 5. And it's overall, it's been a very, very ugly half-court defense. There's just a lot of overhelping, doubling the ball. I think they need to try switching a little bit more than helping. Jericho Sims got 9 minutes last night. They rarely switched with him on those Halliburton pick and rolls. His best trait, Jericho Sims, is his switchability. That's one of his few positive traits. He's able to switch. He's athletic. He's got good lateral movement. But the Knicks ran him in drop. And you had Mikal Bridges struggling at the point of attack, struggling to get over the top, and they had Jericho in drop. So I just, drop coverage against good spacing, shooting offenses is not a good formula. Indiana launched 46 3-point attempts last night. They were way too comfortable getting those off. And that's not a good formula, especially when you're going up against a team that, on the other side of the floor, does a very nice job of taking away your 3-point attempts. They were conceding and allowing those twos. The Knicks only took 25 3-point attempts. So, I just think you have to make some adjustments. And from Thibs' perspective, I understand it to an extent, because not all teams are going to have these high-octane shooting offenses like Indiana and Boston. And the system that he runs has worked, right? He's relying on law of averages. It's also not the version of this Knicks defense that you're expected to see later in the year, right? They're not 100% healthy. Last night was game 9. And you're seeing flashes of good defense with this system. You're seeing some moments. I even saw moments last night. Late in the first quarter, I took down a few notes. Indiana runs a Spain pick and roll. The Knicks switch it with Mikal and Deuce. They eventually turn that into DHO. The Knicks switch that with Deuce and Brunson very seamlessly. Late in the second quarter, Indiana runs a double drag high screens. The Knicks switch it with Brunson on Halliburton. Ended up being a nice sequence. Early third quarter, you got OG Anunoby doing some more, crazy shit where he's just flashing his ability to be everywhere again with his help defense. He does a nice little stunt and recover. He stunts to Halliburton. He recovers to Siakam. Then he switches. Just you're seeing where it can work, right? But flashes aren't enough, right? And these have been, in my opinion, your 2 worst games of the season has been against the Celtics and now the Pacers the second time through, which it's not a coincidence that those are the 2 best offenses in basketball. You can make a case, right? That's concerning. It's very concerning regarding the Knicks making a deep playoff run, that those are the 2 rosters you don't match up well enough with. So I do think that sometimes when you face these teams, when you do face these teams, that's when you make your adjustments. You could play drop coverage against, teams that don't scare you from the perimeter. But when you're playing Boston, when you're playing Indiana, when you're playing teams with stretch 5 offenses, I don't know that drop coverage should be the thing you do. I think that's just template coaching right there. I don't think that's smart. I also think, if we're speaking about Thibodeau, this rotation is super, super thin. And I want to touch on that when we return from break in a second here on BD4 episode 742. Be right back.
If you're interested in our website, just go to www.bd4blog.com. You can subscribe to our blog on there right on the front page. Just like on the podcast, we cover Yankees, Knicks, and MMA. Also on our website are the links to the different platforms for the podcast. Thanks so much.
Studio 69 Productions is a podcast production agency created by Leo Rodriguez to allow content creators to market their podcast. It's an online platform that will market your podcast or any other project that you're working on. Get in touch with Leo Rodriguez from Studio 69 Productions. You can find Studio 69 Productions on Instagram at Studio69NJ. Studio 69 Productions, where dreams are heard and born. Okay. Right now it's tough. You got Tom Thibodeau running out basically a 6.5-man rotation, where you got your 5 starters logging 40 minutes, give or take. Your bench is banged up, injured. The way Thibs coaches, he's not going to expand the rotation even if he has injuries, because he's all about his MO in terms of the rotation. He's all about trust and comfortability. Comfortability. Trust and comfortability. He would rather go with a less, like, he thinks it's risky to add in new guys into the rotation. And he thinks it's less risky to stay with the guys that got him here, quote unquote. He thinks the best chance of winning the game, this is from his perspective, you don't have to agree with it, but he'd rather risk it on adding inexperienced talent into the rotation and sticking with the guys he's comfortable with, because he thinks that's just the best way to win him the game. And sometimes that pays off, and other times it doesn't. And when it doesn't pay off, it gets very loud. And last night, the Knicks, once again, faded in the fourth quarter. They completely folded. They were up 2 points, I think 94-92, entering the fourth quarter. They end up losing the game by 11 points. They were outscored 40-27 in the fourth period. They are running a short rotation, and it's November 10th last night, right? And so there's just not many guys that Thibs is comfortable going with. Even Tyler Kolek, who's looked good offensively, he's got a very short leash right now because he's a rookie and he's in his 9th NBA game and he hasn't even played every game. But it's because of the defense, right? The shooting is there. Kolek can shoot. The playmaking is there. This is a guy who's led his division in college in assists per game, and he's a very good passer. He's a very sharp passer, a good point guard, but the defense has been very poor. He makes a lot of rookie mistakes, whether it's getting beat on back cuts by ball watching or fouling three-point shooters. Last night he had a tough moment, which I think eventually led to him being benched the rest of the way, where late in the first quarter, 30 seconds left, give or take, Indiana runs a pistol keep with TJ McConnell. Kolek doesn't switch it quick enough, and him and Hart eventually just get beat, giving TJ an easy basket. And it eventually led to a 2-for-1 for Indiana to wrap up the period. So he doesn't trust him right now because he's a rookie, and he's a small white kid who's not going to be a small white unathletic kid. That's not going to be a great defensive player, regardless of how well he pans out. The defense is never going to be amazing with him. So if you're bitching about playing time with Tyler Kolek and the rotation and shit, like, you got to remember, you're also bitching about the defense, right? That's not going to improve with Kolek on the floor longer. He's tiny and he's easy to target as a switch. Now, that all said, I still think Tom Thibodeau needs to be a little more flexible, whether it's going to Kolek more or going to Ariel Hukporti, over Sims a little bit longer. Like, currently he's running a 6.5 man, right? It's just not sustainable. And you look at the other side, Indiana last night, they're missing guys too. I think they're missing 4 rotation players, but Jim Carey still found a way to run a 9-man unit out there last night, right? His bench, TJ McConnell, Quentin Jackson, Jarris Walker, and he even gave 9 or so minutes, I think it was, to Enrique Freeman, who played 6 of them in the first half. So, like, make adjustments. Try to lean into your bench a little bit more. I understand it. I'm not going to sit here on November 11th and say fire Tom Thibodeau. I think that's delusional. I think that we have to remember these are the best conditioned athletes in the entire world, more than baseball, more than football, more than hockey, maybe not more than soccer, but very close. Like, these are guys who have their entire lives been trained to sprint for 2+ hours up and down 94 feet court nonstop. I'm sorry. They're men. They're professional athletes. They're men in the best shape of anybody in the world. So, like, most of the criticism is coming from a lot of this younger generation who've been pandered to their entire lives, who grew up getting coddled, who grew up with nap time and grew up with participation trophies and grew up with these white-collar parents. Like, I feel like a lot of the criticism on Twitter is from those types of people who aren't used to hard work and aren't used to tough love and are used to Aaron Boone type leaders. So I'm not really, like, I get it, the rotation's tough to watch, but I'm not really putting it all on Thibodeau because he has his ways and his way has worked for this Knicks team. I'm just looking at it as it's the defense, man. You know, it's guys have to start gaining more chemistry at some point. You know, these Indiana is tough, Boston's tough. That's what I'm most concerned about, man. But I think they have some problems with Mikal Bridges too. That's not looking. That's more Leon Rose. That's not looking like a good trade right now. It's early, but the Knicks traded they traded a haul of first-round picks for this guy, and he does not look anything like what they wanted him to look like. There's a lot of talk about the change of his mechanics on the jump shot, on his release, which the corner three-point shot is falling. He's knocking down the corners, but I think the change in release has affected his accuracy above the break, which he's just 5 for 33, 15% as an above the break three-point shooter this season. And this is not somewhere where he struggled before. His entire career, he's been a solid above the break shooter. I've got the numbers right here. He was 36% last year above the break, 34% 2 years ago, 33% 3 years ago, 39% 4 years ago, 31% as a sophomore, and 36% as a rookie. So that's where he's really struggling right now. And if above the break shooting remains an issue for Mikal Bridges, if that becomes a consistent problem, I'm going to be a little bit concerned, because then it affects the rest of the offense, because then it's not just making and missing shots, but if defenses start to realize that and teams start to scout that, then the defense will help off of Mikal Bridges and they will help on to Brunson actions. If Mikal is spaced out one pass away from the action on above the break, it's going to remind you just like of how teams defend Hart. So he's got to figure that out. I don't know if it's going to take a fake injury to hit the gym and change up that jumper, but that's going to take time. Like, I don't think you do that. But just nail it down pat. You know, he's also not really being featured a ton in this half-court offense, which I think is more a time thing, chemistry. But, you know, we're seeing him a lot of the time. He's in the corner off the ball, right? A lot of his shots are movement, three-point shooting, mid-range attempts. But I think the Knicks should try to involve him and feature him more in actions, like those half-court pistol sets that you used to implement RJ in. You know, more pick and roll, some pick and pop with him. Get him downhill. Find him in semi-transition. You know, I thought last night when Deuce McBride was out there and the Pacer defense was forcing him into half-court play because he's not a point guard, I thought that's when the Knicks should have really leaned into Mikal Bridges more in those lineups. Get him playing with that second unit as the primary initiator. I think that'd be an interesting look. And then, you know, he's not really been great on the other side of the floor, which you were hoping that was his biggest strength, right? Was spacing and defense, but the defense has not been, it's been disappointing. He's struggling pretty badly defending the point of attack. He's got issues getting over the top. You saw that last night as well. He's got issues staying attached off the screen, getting beat on blow-bys last night consistently. You know, the Halliburton step back got him a few times, gave him too much room. He was biting on a few of those fakes. You know, there was a really rough moment defensively, which I thought was a key moment. It was late in the fourth quarter, 2 minutes and change remaining. It's a 7-point game, so the Knicks were right there. But this was a swing factor where Mikal just makes a crucial miscue. He shoots the under on a screen, And that leaves, I don't know if this was one of the Miles Turner threes or if it was Halliburton, but it leaves somebody open who knocks down a three to extend that 7-point deficit into double figures. And I thought that was kind of a killer. So for me with Mikal Bridges, defensively, it all starts at the point of attack. And if he's not getting that stop and you got, poor defensive bigs and drop coverage as your second line of defense, that's a problem. Because now you're forcing guys to rotate, and those are easy kickouts. So those are just some things the Knicks have got to figure out. It's making adjustments. That starts on Thibs. It's figuring shit out defensively. It's getting Mikal right. On the positive, again, Brunson looks like he's figuring shit out. Anunoby has looked excellent. Towns has looked excellent. Another 30-piece last night. But, you got a 5-game homestand coming up. So you're hoping the Knicks can at least take 4 of those. Tomorrow you got Philly. That's at the Garden. It's the first cup game. It's a group game. Philly's been struggling really badly. They're 2-7. Embiid does make a return tomorrow night. This is a first of a back-to-back, the Knicks' first back-to-back, I believe, of the season. Because Wednesday they will go in, or they stay home to host the Bulls. And then after Wednesday, you got 3 more at the Garden against the Nets twice in a row. And then you finish up your homestand against Washington. I think that's a Sunday game. But Philly is tomorrow. They're struggling. Get it the hell done. That's really all I have. Get it done tomorrow. And we got to start to turn this shit around because it's getting late early. And I truly believe bad starts haunt you down the stretch. So I don't know. I just get a little bit concerned. I don't want this to be a mediocre 500 team this year. I get really concerned. I think about that. And I hope the Knicks can find something soon. Very soon. So let's head to our final break. We'll wrap this up with our trivia question when we return. That'll be that.
Thanks for listening to BD4, where there is no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We also do MMA, Yanks every series, Knicks every game, and MMA on occasion.
Welcome back to the show, episode 742 of BD4, where there's no better way to get your Yankees and Knicks analysis. We do Yanks every series, Knicks every game, MMA on occasion. Don't forget to share these episodes on social media. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find my blog. I have a website, BD4blog.com. That is, once again, BD4blog.com. And let's wrap this up with our trivia question, and then we'll get out of here. All right, so our trivia question of the day for this episode 742. How many head coaches have the New York Knicks had in franchise history? 24, 27, 31, or 35? How many head coaches have the New York Knicks had in franchise history? 24, 27, 31, or 35? All right, so let me know the answer wherever you can reach me. It's a multiple choice. One last time. How many head coaches have the Knicks had in franchise history? 24, 27, 31, 35. And that is it. That's all we have for this show. I appreciate you all tuning in. Always do. Be sure to like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Be sure to share this episode. Give us a 5-star rating if you're on Apple Podcasts. All that stuff. But I really do appreciate every one of you who continue to join this, who continue to follow along and listen to this podcast. I really do appreciate it. So thank you. And I'll see you in 743 when we're talking Knicks, Sixers. So hopefully that's a win. We'll see. This episode was brought to you by Anchor.
Hey there! If you stayed the entire way through, we thank you immensely for it. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and that you come back for the next episode real soon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, download these episodes, and share them with your friends as well. BD4 is a 5-star podcast simply because of you, and we'd like to keep it that way. Have a wonderful day. Go Yankees and go Knicks.